The 17th season of the GBL is here, and we've got quite a few move updates to go over. From nerfs to Medicham to a proper Astonish buff, let's talk about everything. Welcome back everyone. With the Adventures Abound season concluding, we've got a brand new GBL season upon us, Timeless Travels. Now there aren't any new moves this season, but we have various move adjustments and move additions, so let's start off with the buffed and nerfed moves. Up first we have Mud Slap, which receives more energy gain. Now this isn't the hugest buff out there, but it is one I personally wanted for quite a while. This finally makes Mud Slap a more respectable move, so we have another good ground fast move besides Mud Shot. This will allow Golurk and Claydol more use in cups, and Rhyperior will also be a little more comfortable in the Master League, but I think Gastrodon is the highlight here. It's got a very solid moveset, but now it can charge up to its charged moves a bit quicker. I think Gastrodon will now have more Great League play, and it'll especially dominate this season's Hisui Cup even more so than last time. Moving on though, we have Fire Spin, which gets a little buff in damage, now making it a clone of Magical Leaf. And overall, this is a nice change, but I don't expect any huge meta changes from it. It's a buff to Alolan Marowak, which I'm absolutely here for, but otherwise, it'll be a small buff to Heatran and Solgaleo in the Master League, but not much else. That's not the only Fire Fast move getting buffed though, with Incinerate getting a much more significant power gain of 5, bringing it to 20 power and 20 energy. Stat-wise, Incinerate is now the best fast move in the game, with 4 damage and 4 energy per turn. The caveat to this though is the sluggish 5-turn duration of the move, which makes it difficult to be flexible, especially at higher levels of play. Still, this will help those that use the move, notably Talonflame and Skeledirge in the Great and Ultra Leagues, and Ho-Oh in the Master League. One more fire buff comes with Blaze Kick getting 5 extra power, finally differentiating it from Fire Punch. The move won't make too much of an impact, but Blaziken will certainly appreciate it in the limited formats where it's used, like Weather Cup. Next we've got our first nerf, being Breaking Swipe. This is a move that made Steelix a menace, so now they've tuned down the effect chance for the attack debuff. Unfortunately though, Steelix will still be a great Pokemon, just slightly more manageable. But this nerf hurts things like Haxorus, Rayquaza, and all the other frailer users of the move a lot more. I honestly think Steelix should have never got this move, but here we are. We do have some Steel Fast move buffs though, starting with Iron Tail, which gets 1 more damage and 1 extra energy as well. This update really isn't good enough to make the move good though, so I don't think any Pokemon will want to use it. The other Steel Fast move getting a buff though is Steel Wing, which gets 2 more energy gain, making it a Poison Jab clone. This move was previously mediocre, really only used by Skarmory in the Flying Cup. But now, Skarmory can opt for this move over Air Slash in the Open Great League, seeing that it now has much better stats. This move will definitely help it out after the Sky Attack nerf, and other Pokemon like Kyurem and Dragonite may use it as a worse, but still fun option to target Zacian and Xerneas in the Master League. Astonish finally gets the buff it deserves, getting a damage buff all the way up to 9. Last season's buff obviously did nothing for it, so it's nice to see that Niantic saw the less than stellar reaction and buffed it properly this time. It now sits as a clone of Ice Shard, which is still a pretty average move overall, but it is still a big upgrade for Astonish. Truthfully though, I don't see a significant impact from this move's buff. It's still nice, don't get me wrong, with Golurk having a nice alternative to Mudslap, and Klefki, Shiinotic, and Amoonguss having a viable option at last, allowing them more room to compete in limited formats. I do think an energy buff to a Snarl clone could have done more potentially, allowing Pokemon like Drifblim and Goldengo to reach their charged moves faster, but I guess not. Next though, we have Bubble being rebuffed after being nerfed years ago to keep Azumarill in check. Now, Azumarill will see more use once again, but these days, Pokemon like Toxapex and Trevenant exist to keep it in check, so I don't think it's an awful decision. This will also allow Jellicent to run an alternative move, and both it and Azumarill to keep Medicham in check, who we'll talk about soon. Another water move getting a buff is Scald, which was already pretty good, but now it's getting a small damage buff, and its attack debuff chance is being raised. I think Poliwrath will remain the biggest beneficiary of this buff, but this move is also being distributed to more Pokemon, so some like Ludicolo and Whiscash will also enjoy this addition. Those two will trade away valuable ice coverage for a cheaper, more well-rounded move. And also a shout out to Tentacruel, who will continue to be a dangerous choice in the Ultra League. And our last update is a nerf to Psychic, which is likely something directly aimed at Medicham. The move's power now sits at 75 power, making it a pretty bad one. I suspect Medicham will now want to run Ice Punch and the much better Dynamic Punch for charged moves. And while I still suspect Medicham to be a big Pokemon in the Great League, this does hinder its coverage quite a lot, which will definitely reel it in. Losing Psychic's coverage means it has nothing to defend itself against Pokemon like Alolan Marowak, Frostlass, and the newly buffed Azumarill. We're still talking about a strong Pokemon, but I think this nerf will finally bring Medicham to a healthier place in the meta. Only time will tell though. Next though, we move to move additions, and there are a fair amount, but let's go through them. Up first, we have Icy Wind being distributed to Poliwrath, Abomasnow, both forms of Avalugg, and both Frigibax and Arctibax. I think for Poliwrath this is a good alternative option to Ice Punch, a bit more expensive, but really valuable with the attack debuff. I suspect Abomasnow will like this move as well, at least in its normal form. I think Shadow Abomasnow will still want the spammy Weather Ball. Both forms of Avalugg will likely take this move as well, and while Frigibax isn't really used in PvP, Arctibax may want this move over Avalanche sometimes, though Avalanche does have a lot stronger damage, so maybe not. Next we have Parabolic Charge being added to Dedenne, a move that was removed from it pre-release, but now it returns. It's still a useless move though, so until it's buffed, this does nothing. Next we get a whole bunch of Pokemon getting Trailblaze, similar to last season, but I don't think many of them seem that impactful. Alolan Raichu may use it occasionally, but I think it would rather just use Grass Knot. There's also a Rangaroo who gets a nice coverage move, but overall, there's nothing too exciting here. Next comes Aerial Ace making its way onto Alolan Sandslash, and this is an interesting choice. I think it's there mainly to help deal with fighting types like Medicham, but I don't think it'll do that much for it. It could be helpful in a few cups, but for the most part, I still think it'll prefer Ice Punch and Drill Run. Another flying move that gets spread to new Pokemon is Fly, a strong 45 energy move that has been begging to be available on more Pokemon, but it doesn't do a ton for those who are getting it. Staraptor will do a little better, and also gets a boost as a raid attacker, but otherwise, it's Talonflame and Vikavolt who are the most interesting. Fly over Discharge on Vikavolt could give it some interesting coverage, letting it beat things like Medicham, and Talonflame will enjoy this tool along with its newly buffed Incinerate. It's still a bit clunky as we discussed previously, but I definitely think this Pokemon will see a comeback. Vigoroth is up next getting Rock Slide, and even though I've always enjoyed Vigoroth in the Open Great League, I'm a little concerned about this addition. It's a Pokemon that dominates most limited formats that it's in, and this will only give it more play against certain Pokemon. The only drawback is less play against Steel types, but it's still going to be very good, having a move to hit Pokemon like Charizard and Drifblim. This is definitely one of the bigger changes this season, and not necessarily one that excites me. But our final addition we have is Triple Axle on Articuno, Delibird, Frostlass, and Cryogonal, and of these, Frostlass is the only interesting one, but honestly, it seems way more situational than good. In most scenarios, it makes sense to just go for the stronger Avalanche rather than buffing Frostlass's attack. Beyond a few scenarios where you can use the stronger Shadow Ball to win after buffing your attack, I'd say this too is just a side grade at best, but I'd be curious to see if people can build better strategies around it. But with these changes, what do I think the season's meta will look like? For the Great League, I think Medicham will still be a big player, but it will be far more manageable, being more of a threat to Dark and Steel types, but being much more vulnerable to Ghost and Fairy types. I think Talonflame will see a bit of a comeback, but its clunkiness may still hold it back. Poliwrath will see more use in the Great League too, now rivaling Medicham a lot more, and Azumarill will step back into the meta as a staple. The Steel Wing buff was also big, so I suspect Skarmory will return in full force. And because of the various fire and water buffs, along with Skarmory, I think Lantern will see a lot more use this season too. In the Ultra League, I think Steelix will still be common, but slightly less so post Breaking Swipe nerf. I think Poliwrath and Talonflame will also be a bit more prominent here, as well as Skeledirge, who I loved using this past season. But otherwise, I don't think this season's Ultra League will be a whole lot different. For the Master League though, The Breaking Swipe nerf will definitely drag Rayquaza's use down, and as a result, Groudon and Kyogre will be much safer choices. And Ho-Oh already did really well, but with the Incinerate buff, it will be even better. I definitely recommend building one. And with Ho-Oh and Groudon appearing more, we'll have pretty solid counters to Dialga and Zacian. Both are still going to be huge Pokemon though, especially with Dialga likely getting Roar of Time later this season, but we'll have more things to help manage them at least. But now, I'm turning it over to you. What do you think of this season's move updates? Any that you're excited about or disappointed with? Let us know down in the comments below. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming videos. We'll be doing a few prep guides on some of the new cups this season, so you don't want to miss out. Until next time though, thank you so much for watching, we hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Take care.